this on mine, and I can't.
Need some water or some coffee or anything?
No, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we are here to discuss your formal observation,
Yes.
in which we did on the 14th.
Yes.
I've got a couple questions for you. I want to hear a lot from you about the lesson, and then we'll talk about my notes and talk about our action plan for improvement moving forward. Okay. So my first question: what might be some thoughts on how you thought the lesson went?
I think it went well. It's a concept that is really new to them, and I personally don't like how Ameritown has set up their lesson plans, so I try to take it and make it my own, where I know the kids will be able to understand it more. And right now the biggest thing I'm trying to teach them is the vocabulary, so it's really making sure that they understand the vocabulary, but overall I think it went well. I was happy with it.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Tell you more. I liked the discussions that they were having. The group that I pulled down to the carpet to talk to, they wanted to do both scenarios. Originally I read both of them with them and wanted them to select one and just discuss the one in detail. But as soon as they were done doing that, they wanted to discuss the other. So it was really interesting to see that they grasped the material that was taught and wanted to kind of go further than what I provided them, which let me know I could push them a little harder.
Okay.
So their stamina for the low group that I have is increasing, and I'm starting to notice that, so I was able to see that in that lesson as well. And I've been really working hard with engagement with the class, with their discussions and trying to make it purposeful. And probably I started at the beginning of December, and the lessons is kind of giving them a discussion. Here are my expectations for discussion, and here's my expectations for when you're writing down your answers. And I think setting that up front is helping guide their conversations also. And then not so long ago, anytime I change where they're sitting in table groups, I have them talk about the norms, because I'll mix them into their own groups that I purposely place them, but if it's just table groups that I'm have them in, they set their own norms every time I move my table, like my seating arrangement around.
I didn't see that. Did they do that?
They did that. This was when we got back from break, so I don't do it every single time.
Okay.
When I change my seating arrangements around, the people that they're sitting near, they will set norms, and I have them written down on paper, and so if I see they're not following that, then they know where to go to get the paper and then go back over their norms.
That's cool.
So, and I think that's helped also. So,
Scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the single greatest lesson since Aristotle.
okay.
Where do you see yourself on that scale for that lesson?
7. I'd say 7. I think my differentiation is something that I know I struggle with, and I want to work harder on. So I think that there's always area improvement for that. And then making sure I'm checking in with every group, and how to do that and being innovative with it. Still learning how to do that. So, I mean, I thought it was a really good lesson, but there's always areas for improvement. So.
I agree.
Yeah.
Really good lesson.
Yeah.
Areas of improvement always.
Mm-hmm.
7 is interesting. Usually people give themselves 7 or an 8. It's been my experience that those who go on the lower end, a little harder on themselves. But I would agree it was a 7 or an 8 lesson.
Yeah.
And you're obviously a 9 or 10 teacher. And so I like to hear you say that there was room for some improvement there. And here's what I'm kind of paraphrasing what I heard from you today, was how the lesson went. Discussions went well. They learned what you asked them to do. The skills that you're teaching of stamina and working together are improving as you move through this, which also hits the stuff of Ameritown as well. And that you're working hard on engagement. I thought I saw lots of engagement happening that day, but if you could find some things to work on, would be differentiation, and then checking in with every group to make sure that they're doing their things. Is that was accurate?
Yeah.
So now that you've had some time to think, we did this on Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
Okay, so Monday, today's Friday.
Yeah.
You've had a while to think about it.
Yeah.
What changes might you implement? You're gonna do this exact same lesson next year. How are you gonna change it?
So group wise, so on the floor I always try to pair like one or two of my high kids with my low group when I pull them over. And
You're talking about when you went to the rug.
when I went to the rug.
Okay.
And so I'll start off and I'll set my expectations, and generally I will meet with them first, spend a couple minutes, and then I actually get up and physically move around. And for whatever reason this time I did not do that. I didn't get up and I didn't move around, and normally I will do that. I think I was more focused on trying to figure out what was going on with Jacob and Lance at the time, when they were working in their group, and then sitting down and having a little conversation with Lance, that kind of pulled my focus, and I went back to the group instead of getting up and like walking around. So making sure that I'm really intentional to do that.
Okay.
I have, from last year to this year, that was one thing that I made sure to work on when Dave was talking to me about feedback. And it was making sure that if I'm sitting there working with a small group, to at least call over to them and have them do the thumbs up, thumbs down, where they're at, where they're comfortable. And so now I'm moving from that and trying to physically get up and make sure that I'm spending the time with my little group, but I'm definitely touching base with each one. So just making sure I'm doing it and being intentional with it.
And so I also don't want you to diminish a whole class purposeful CFU for the group when you are with it, because they do deserve Ms. Kettinger's time in that small group, and so I think knowing that at some point within my lesson plan I'm going to sit with these kids in the small group. While I'm there, I'm purposely planning to do this, and this to check for the group. That way it's not such a burden on you, and you don't have to feel bad that I didn't get to everybody within the group, but doing that, and then even as a growth opportunity for you, walking through that without your kids. I saw a great video the other day of an instructional coach and a teacher pre-conferencing a lesson, going over what I was going to do within the room, and it might look a little weird or strange, feel strange, but sitting at your rug and just kind of going through it and going, hey, I'm going to do a quick whiteboard activity right here. I'm going to do a quick thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs up, thumbs down is good for some things. It's not good for others. So depending on what exactly you wanted to check, because what is the default thumb for all kids? The thumbs up.
Yeah.
That doesn't really get us what we need, and so being purposeful about that, I think, would be good. That's the last question I have before we start talking about the feedback piece. What are some things that your students might be doing different the next time you want to do this?
If I could get them to write more in their lessons, I would love to implement that. We had a lot of conversation, but now it's how can I take their understanding a little earlier in the lesson and really use that to write more, more than just a basic one sentence response for me. Like how can they take that and really write something out to show me, even if it's creating a scenario based on what we talked about, using the debit card and how to, and coming up with their own scenario than what they were just reading. So
can I point your direction to your DOL for that day?
yes.
I can confidently discuss. How can you change that today to get what you want the kids to do?
They could confidently prepare a scenario in which an individual is showing the advantages or disadvantages of using the debit card.
Students can confidently write this. I think that gets right to where you want to do. I think a good leverage point for you would be to figuring out what exactly you want and then having them do it.
Yeah.
Because you have the skills and you have the art. The art is not what I'm concerned about. The art, and I'm not concerned about the science either. But the science is where you can make some growth opportunities.
Right.
Sitting back with your lesson and sitting there and going, what exactly do I want? If you want your kids to write more,
then make that.
Then make them write more. Setting the stage as our target will be aligned to that, our DOL will be aligned to that, an activity throughout the lesson will be aligned to that. So let's get to notes. The use of the timer was really good. I love the fact that it looks like 5th grade might be implementing the embedded timer as a whole. And I think that really moves kids along and hold kids accountable. I like the fact that you didn't take Ameritown's lesson plan and make it theirs.
Well,
but made it your own.
It wouldn't have matched anything that we are about as a school. So,
Well, and it raises the level of rigor. I like the fact that I went into an Ameritown lesson as opposed to a normal ELA lesson, because I do want to see how you're embedding our strategic activies throughout the building into those non-traditional learning environments. The good use of the target, the DOL was great to get the class on the same page. I like how you started the class with the target and the DOL as a group. This is what we're moving towards, and here's how you'll show me. I think a couple little tweaks in the DOL, like we just talked about, will be great. And then you did a really good use of checks for understanding. When I look at your lesson plan, and this is one thing I would share with your teammates as well, is I am a fan of the use of the notes section, because the notes section is all about you and how you get there. When I present, you probably see me looking at my computer a lot. It's because my notes are up there, and you sitting back and going, hey, I'm going to explain to the students what this is, and then here's how I'm going to check for that understanding. Super positive, super great way to look at it, and giving it some forethought. Hey, when I get to this piece of my presentation, by this piece of the learning, I'm going to use this check for understanding. It was purposeful, it was guided, it got what you wanted from the kids, and it was aligned to everything that you were doing that day. So that was really good. Some leverage points that I see in class. Students should always be doing something. Product. I like the idea of an outcome product of your students, but you watched a couple of videos. What are kids supposed to be doing during those videos? The act of passively watching is one thing. The act of actively engaging in the video is where you can have some growth. Is where, again, you tweak just a little bit, and you got kids firing on all cylinders. I was sharing this with a teacher earlier. You have the balance of you really like kids, you care for them, you have high expectations, and you also have a very nice personality in which kids like you back, that you're able to get your kids to do what you want them to do. Where other teachers who are missing one of those facets, that's when they have the struggle. Your kids would, if you would say, hey everybody, we're gonna do wind sprints for the next hour, your kids would go, let's do it. Ms. Kenninger has asked us to do it, and so leveraging that into making products throughout the day, because that's what you want them to do. Hey, just every activity that we do today, you're gonna have your notebook open, and you're gonna give me, one sentence, 3 notes, 3 bullets that lead us right into our DOL, at the end of which I'm gonna have you write a scenario, instead of having kids sit back and passive. Does that make sense? Do you see passive learning happening during that lesson the other day?
Oh yeah, especially during when we were just going over the vocabulary, and we could have had them writing, taking what we were discussing and then maybe writing a sentence to use it to see can they incorporate it into a sentence correctly.
And you wouldn't get an ugh or a shrug or, oh, Miss Getty, you wouldn't get any of that.
And I mean, they're used to doing it because during our vocabulary, our mechanics class, they're doing that already with the vocab. So it's not out of their realm to do it. So implementing it is a way to move it to that direction, absolutely.
The one thing I've seen one of your teammates do that I think is great for you as well is that in explicit instruction for all directions. A couple of times in here, in your lesson plan and your presentation, you told the materials piece I thought was great. Hey guys, this is what we're going to be using today, so get ready. Hey, while we do this activity, here's the directions. So one thing I would show you, and I think Ms. Nelson does this well as well. So if I'm going to do a reading activity, I have my instructions here, but I'm just going to show you something. I'm going to have a visual of every time we do this. This is what you're going to do, so that it gets our auditory learners, it gets our visual learners. You can walk up and touch the notebook for the kids who are our tactile learners. This is where you're going to be at, and just having that up there during this time, explicit instruction on what I want you to do, and even putting an expectation in there. Hey, we're going to do this. When you guys have your turn and talk today, I expect you to say 3 things. And have it listed. Every student will say 3 things about what they just learned. Whatever the expectation is, sharing that with them and showing how they can master whatever that expectation is. You don't need to create a 70-point rubric for all that stuff, but tell them what their expectation is. I think that's a great leverage point for you. And then planning for effective instruction. The next time you and I do this, I think our action plan at this point would be a lesson plan analysis. That you and I sit down pre-teaching. We go through a lesson plan. You can come back and alter and change. Then we come in to observe the lesson plan, so it's not necessarily just a spot. I observe the lesson plan, and then we post-conference about it. I think that's a big step for you in your learning to be able to go, how am I effectively planning for this, and then getting feedback from that. Okay?
Okay.
What are we at time? What questions do you have for me?
Differentiation.
Yeah. Differentiation's tough.
It's tough. I talked to Dave about it last year, and he gave great ideas, and then he had a training, and I attended that. And then I went off-site and attended that training, and we know that was not so wonderful. I would love to be able to observe somebody, whether it's in the school or out of the school, that does it really well. Besides just talking, like here's examples, like seeing it in action. And if there's not somebody in this school that does it really well, like I want to be that person that then if Ashlyn or Heather say, yes, this person needs differentiation, they can say, go to her classroom and go see it. So if there's a way for me to get in touch with somebody at the district level to go watch somebody who's really good at it, I would like to do that.
So I don't know if there's anybody at the district level.
Somewhere.
I hear you. First, let me tell you, this is the conversation that great teachers have.
Yeah.
That you are not alone. That you, this is a struggle. It was a struggle for me as a teacher. I think I shared with you a while back that I've been in probably 700 classrooms at this point, and I've seen like 2 people like do it really well.
Right.
And so you're asking the right questions. I will find you some support in that. I think the first step of that conversation with you is during your win time is figuring out where your tier 2 kids are. Right. And then thinking about how that tier 2 differentiation can impact your tier 1 instruction. Okay. And taking it step by step with that of saying, so I've identified my gaps for my tier 2 kids here, here, and here. Now as I'm planning my lesson, how am I using that information from tier 2? This student struggles with accuracy, this student struggles with retail, and I can take that retail back because 2 years ago during DIBELS they struggled with nonsense words, and so maybe sight words is an issue for us. That requires a little bit more work on your end, but it also sets the stage. It says, when I do this lesson, how do I differentiate for Johnny, Toby, and Sally? Right. Is I'm going to send home a vocabulary sheet on Friday, knowing that we're going to touch on these vocabulary words on Wednesday, and give them some time to experience and work with them before we get there. When I start teaching that lesson, I'm going to touch base with them as we start and everybody's getting out their materials. I'm gonna stop and go, hey, I want you to pull out your vocabulary sheet that I sent you on Friday. Understand which vocabulary words they didn't get to answer or didn't understand well, and then touching base back with them on that. So the first step is look at the tier 2 stuff, and then implementing that with your tier 1. Okay, and then in the meantime, I will figure out some professional development we can provide you on the differentiation side, because it's tough.
Yeah.
But that's the exemplary piece. I mean, I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
You're one of the leaders in this building when it comes to instructional practices. I definitely see instructional coach in your future. When I'm done beating the teaching out of you for the next 10 years. But that's the next piece that I think you can really work on. What other questions do you have?
I mean, vocab was one of them, but you had just said it, like getting them the vocabulary ahead of time.
Set the stage.
Which even just the lack of, I guess, cultural awareness of background information.
Sure.
Even sending that out ahead of time to say, hey, next week we're going to touch base on this topic, and here's something that you can read to kind of get some background information on it.
I agree 100%, and that goes back to the lesson planning piece. Being about 2 weeks or so ahead,
right.
Having, I can show you some exemplary lesson plans that I've looked at, more so than just planning this way, but sitting back and going, now that I plan my lesson, where are kids going to struggle, what questions do I need to ask,
Right.
pre-planning those questions and knowing where kids are going to come up with that struggle, and then putting measures in place to go above and beyond that. That's where the differentiation comes in. Kids are going to struggle when we get here because they're going to ask me, what's the difference between
Right.
a debit card and a credit card? And so I'm going to set the stage beforehand, knowing that in advance, that I'm going to send home some homework that says what a debit card or credit card is, or something as simple as, hey, kids in the past have struggled with this, so right as you guys are getting this done, I'm going to let you guys know exactly what the difference between a debit and a credit card is, so we can move through this. But that takes some time, that takes some effort, but I think this is where you and I can really make some gains together.
Right.
Cool?
Yes.
Any questions about the spot itself?
No.
Did a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. You're on top.
It was fun. I like teaching this
You do.
unit, so.
You like teaching in general, and I can
do.
see it.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
teaching for me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Let me know if you have any questions, okay?
Alrighty.